Today is June 14th. The time now is 4 o'clock. We need a call to order for the meeting. Ms. Coleman, can you make a roll call for me?
Ms. Burney? Can you hear me?
Here.
Mills?
Here.
Mr. Middleton?
Here.
Mr. Simpkins? Mr. Simpkins? Okay. Mr. Scott? I can see Mr. Scott. He's on mute. And Mr.
Okay.
O'Neill?
I saw Mr. O'Neill on it.
Okay, I see him now.
Okay.
And Ms. Yatnak. Mr. Simpkins is
Okay.
pending. Oh, there he
Okay,
is.
thank you. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. This board meeting marks the 17th time we are in a virtual environment as we continue to function accordingly to the coronavirus impact. Board members and staff will conduct the business of the day as we would do under normal conditions via Zoom. And for the public and media access, this meeting is also being live streamed via YouTube. The public, you can also view the recorded previous meetings located at the Assessors website, which is AugustaRichmondTaxAssessors.com. I now need an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
A second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? The ayes have it.
Ms.
Need approval
Dianthony,
of the regular minute. Yes, ma'am.
just before you start, just as an FYI for the record, Ms. Dial is currently absent.
Okay, thank you so much. Need an approval of the regular meeting minutes from May the 10th, 2021. Anybody want to approve the minutes from the 10th of May?
So move. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, the ayes have it. Board of Assessors Committee reports, Specialized Assessments Obsolescence Committee.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, we had a meeting today and went over a number of different items. And Mr. Roundtree staff had made a lot of different recommendations, and our committee approved the recommendation, or approved what staff recommended, and agreed to send it on to the regular board and present it at this board meeting. And Mr. Roundtree will go in more detail with it because there are a number of different items to be covered.
Okay, thank you so much. Business and Personnel Review Committee. Any reports?
There is no report. The Personnel Review Committee had no reason to meet.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much. Now we're going forward with the 2021 Business Personal Property Digest approval. Ms. Wooges, would you please present the Personal Property Digest report?
You're still muted, Terry.
Thank you. So we have three lists that we're bringing before you today. It's the modified, the new, and deleted. And I believe the board each had a section of those pages to review. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, Ms. Coleman, can you go down the list and see who has any questions, please?
Sure. Beginning with deleted businesses, accounts. In order of assignment, Mr. Simpkins.
I have to apologize. I just got this information about 30 minutes ago, and I'm quickly looking over it. I see nothing that jumps out at me, but I cannot say that I went through it with a fine tooth comb either.
Okay.
Mr. Middleton?
Madam Chair, I departed for vacation prior to this information being distributed. Therefore, I did not have an opportunity to review it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott? You're muted, sir. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott, can you hear me? We'll come back to you, sir. Ms. Burney?
First, I want to get clarification. I actually did try to look over everything that I received, but Miss Woodards, the pages, we had 3 documents, one with 28 pages, one with 47 pages, one with 386 pages. And I want to make sure I'm on the same page when I ask questions. So which document are you?
I believe you're looking at the deleted business and boat accounts, and that's the one that has 28 pages.
Okay, is that the one that you're asking the question about?
Well, I was asking if anybody had any questions. Now, these are deleted boats and businesses, which usually mean they either left the county and are no longer in business. They could have sold their business to somebody else. So we would delete an account that's in that company name and create a new account for the purchaser of that business. And that's basically what your deleted business and boat accounts. Of course, if you had a boat and you sold it and you didn't have any other boats, it would be on this report as well.
Okay, I understand what the account is, but what I was trying to make sure was that when I did my review, I did my notes linking it back to the number of pages in the document. And so that's kind of not how I'm understanding you asking a question. That's why I was asking, are you on the 28-page document, the 47-page, or the 386 page?
The 28
page.
The 28 page, okay. On the 28 page, let me turn, I think I did have one question, just a moment.
Okay.
Nope, that's on one of the other documents, none on that one.
All right, thank you.
Ms. DeAntonac?
I had no questions.
Mr. O'Neill?
Just one question, and this is on the 28-page document where these are deleted businesses, and I see businesses like Wells Fargo and JCPenney, Augusta Newsprint. Is that telling me that these businesses no longer exist here?
It may have just been the account itself. Do you know the JCPenney one? Do you know what that account number is? So I could try to find it, or what page that was on?
I know it's on page, I think JCPenney is on page 10, I believe.
Mr. O'Neill and Terry, I personally reviewed that one because that one stuck out to me on the deleted items as well. It is now under a different ownership name. I think they reclassified it under some LLC. So JCPenney's is still here. Augusta Newsprint is gone. They closed last year. We made an idle adjustment last year, And then this year, the business has been sold and the buildings are actually awaiting demolition.
Okay, I notice a Wells Fargo also. What's the status on that?
There may be a particular bank that closed. I'll be happy to look at it if you'll provide me that account number or which one you're
I
looking
believe
at.
it's on page 3.
There's several of them, Brian, on there. I can look and see if we have any notes.
I may not have the right page number, but I did.
Yeah, page 3, I do see Wells Fargo. Let's see if we have any notes on those.
Okay, I can actually speak to those, seeing it now in front of me. So Fort Gordon, we had a separate account for the bank and the ATM. They are actually in one location, so we combined those to one account instead of two. The one on Gordon Highway has now closed. That building's now a church. Eisenhower, the other Fort Gordons, those were all combined. I would have to look on the Wheeler to be specific and the Walton Way to be specific on those two, but I'm familiar with the other ones.
Okay. One other thing on the section with 47 pages, I see AT&T Mobility and Sprint and VZW. Why are there so many different accounts? Is that actually that number of each of those businesses here?
Those could be for the location of either a store or location of a tower. So you might just have a small portion that's just that one single tower. And then there could be multiple businesses on that cell tower for Verizon.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, no further questions.
Mills?
No questions.
Okay, Ms. Dial is absent, and we'll circle back to Mr. Scott. Did you have any questions, Mr. Scott, regarding the
question.
deleted? Okay.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Before we leave that, could we, on the document with the 47 pages, page 22, there's a Sisters with Passion listed with a value of $5,230. I've never heard of that. Can you say what that is?
Can you give me that account number, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I didn't write the number. I just wrote the page it was on, page 22.
Page 22. All right, let me pull that document up. Is that the new accounts?
Yes, it's in the 47 page document.
Okay. All right, hold on just a second. And what was the name of the
It's right toward the top, Sisters with Passion,
okay.
2120393.
Okay, that's in like a beauty salon.
Oh, okay.
So that's the type of business that category number 22 that you see kind of towards the left a little bit next to the address. That tells me that it's a salon or some type of beauty supply.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any questions pertaining to the modified accounts list? Miss
I've
Coleman,
got a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
Were we going in order or?
Yes, ma'am. I was waiting on her to call it out so we could see if
Okay.
anybody had any questions.
Okay, we're done with the deleted list, the modified business list. We'll start with
Yes,
order
ma'am.
of assignment. Mr. Simpkins? Mr. Simpkins?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. I had
Okay,
it on mute.
sure. Mr. Middleton? You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, again, I had departed for vacation prior to this information being distributed. So I
Okay,
did not get an opportunity to review it.
okay. Mr. Scott
No questions.
and Ms. Burney?
Yes, I have a couple. So I did write the numbers down on this and I'll try to go through it quickly.
Okay.
The first one is 365800 Pollock office machine.
That is the location they have on Central Avenue, 1711 Central Avenue. They have inventory on this account as well as machinery, equipment, furniture, and fixtures. And it looks like they may have had some disposals from the previous year because there's a difference in value.
Yeah, so the difference in value on
Okay.
that one, Miss Burney, is the inventory. And that's not an uncommon thing we've seen with businesses this year through COVID. They kind of just decrease their inventory levels.
Okay, that might be the same explanation for the next one, which is 390534 Riverside Refreshment.
I'll look at the 20 to give you 542, 318, 36. It looks like their machinery and equipment. Let me just go back. I'm going to pull up a different one. That way I can see them both at the same time. 1 second.
I think Terry's already alluding to it, but yes, that one, the big difference there was the machinery and equipment. I would assume that, again, based on COVID, they got rid of a few vending machines or some old asset cleanup a little bit, but they did dispose of equipment. The inventory was down, but not significantly.
Okay, thank you. My next one was 1193614 Sam's East.
All right, 1 minute, please. All right, the machinery and equipment is down, and also their inventory is down on the Sam's Club on Bobby Jones.
Okay, and my last one is 2115598 Textron.
All right, we'll take a look at that one. This was a plane, and it looks like they sold one of the aircraft on that account. So it was aircraft account for Textron Incorporated.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The Antonak?
No questions.
Mr. O'Neill?
One question on page 3, 84 Lumber Company. They had a valuation change of $1,300,000. What could that have, just added inventory that created that amount?
Do you know that account numbers?
So that's I guess, without knowing the account, it is a lumber company that's on Wilds Road, and they do specialize in framing packages for builders, and the pricing of lumber, specifically framing packages and 2x4s, has skyrocketed in the last year. So it could be a mixture of inventory and just the cost of the materials themselves.
You're right, Scott. You're dead on the money. The difference is the inventory level. It's significantly more, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it's due to the price of the lumber.
Okay, I thought as much, but just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, let's go to page 308, and I'm looking at Billy Knight. Yeah, it's two. One is on Powell Road and one is on Hurd Avenue. Are we just talking about property, like a house, some type of cabinet or what? For
No,
Billy
sir,
Knight?
this would be for personal property. So it looks like it made the Billy Knight, I'll just pull that account up. And this particular one has a small boat on it. That would be the 2120017.
Okay,
And then the other account. And it could be a different location for a Billy L. Knight.
Correct.
Which are both Billy L., but it could be father and son, I'm not sure. This one has 5 boats on it, and it's for 116 Thomas Circle.
right, okay then, all right. I just want to make sure that I was leaning in the same direction, that's all.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, with Ms. Dial absent, that is everyone for the modified accounts.
Hi, I'm
Are
here
there-
now.
Oh, hi, Ms. Dial.
Hey, and I did not have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions pertaining to the new business and boats assessment change?
New business accounts, that's the document with 47 total pages. Mr. Simpkins, he said he didn't have time for review. Mr.
Right.
Middleton was on vacation.
Right.
Mr. Scott,
No question.
Ms. Burney,
Mine was already answered. Thank you.
okay. Ms. DeAnsnack,
Okay, my thing is, can you go and give us a brief synopsis of the Amendment 74 and Amendment 65? Because I'm looking at, hold on. Account number 2122529 with the value of $4 million and the assessment value is at 1. Can you give me a brief description of that one?
Yeah, I'll pull it up. This is Top Golf. So it's within the city limits of Augusta or the old urban district. And they spent over $100,000 for a 5-year period. They get a reduction in their millage rate. And then once that, as long as they don't spend that additional money in the future years, that account would have $1 on it after that 5-year period ended. If they spend another $100,000 or more in fair market value, we would have to create a 5-year cycle for a set of new purchases. Okay. Amendment 74 is if you're a manufacturer and you spend over $1 million, you get a reduction in the millage rate as well. And that would be capital improvements. So it wouldn't include land or inventory.
Okay, so that would, looking at
that one does not
Walgreens-
have that, right?
Okay, so account number 2122370, which is Walgreens Company, received Amendment 65.
All right, so that would be the same situation.
Right.
We may have 2 accounts on that.
Mm-hmm.
And one would hold the Amendment 65 values for that 5-year period, but I can pull it up just to look at it.
Yeah, I have that one up, Terry. That's the location on Walton Way where they took over the Rite Aid that used to be there. And that's
Okay.
the Amendment 65 portion of that account.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all my questions.
Mr. O'Neill,
No further questions.
okay. Mr. Williams, excuse me, Mr. Mills.
No questions.
Okay. And Ms. Dial.
No questions, thank you.
That
Okay.
concludes each section of the Business Personal Property Digest.
So with that being said, I need a motion to approve the 2021 Personal Property Digest.
So moved.
I have a first and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Moving on to 2021 homestead applications, Ms. Woojes.
Yes, ma'am. So we had a little over 1,940 homestead applications for the 2021 year. So we just bring this before the board so they can just approve these homestead codes for the 2021 year. These would only be new ones on this particular list.
Okay. Are there any questions pertaining to the 2021 homestead applications? With none, I need a motion to approve.
Juanita
moved.
Burney, motion to approve.
Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? The ayes have it. We're moving on to staff recommendations. Personal property, Ms. Woojes.
All right, Keldrick, if you could go to page 1 of the homestead, thank you. We have, this is our homestead and ownership spreadsheet. I believe that all of these are homestead related. We have homesteads that we received from the TCO that we didn't have in our original batches. Those could be the post. Reinstate homesteads usually come from the real estate notices going out where we've got some type of documentation that the owner doesn't live at that address and we're not able to find them. And then we'll get a call from them once they get their notices that shows that their estimated taxes go up. And we understand they've either moved in with a family member because of health reasons. They might be in a nursing home temporarily. And so we do allow them to have those homesteads. And then some of them have never left their house and we have returned mail on them and just have been unable to contact them. So those are a lot of your reinstatements. We have removals. We have a couple of parcels this year where people have asked us to remove the homestead exemptions because they're getting homestead either in another county or another state, or they have homestead on a different parcel. And that would be on page 1 and 2. There's 2 pages of those. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to address those. If not, we can move on to the homestead denials, which is on page 3.
Any questions? Okay, moving on.
All right, I'll move on to homestead denials. They have an opportunity to file an appeal if they don't agree with us removing or denying their homestead exemption. And so these are all of our homestead denials that we have so far this year. The majority of them, their deed was dated after January 1. So they wouldn't qualify for this year, but they would qualify for next year. And that was the majority on these denials. There was a military that was not a resident, and there was a couple that didn't even own the property as far as legal paperwork being filed.
Gotcha. Does anybody have any questions? If there are none, we're moving on to real estate.
I think we have a couple more pages on our personal property. I'm sorry. So
Okay.
page 4 is exempt applications. So we have 2 new locations for neighborhood improvement project. Their DBA is Medical Associates. We have other locations that the board has previously exempted. Just a recap, they cannot deny any access. They have self-pay, private insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. There are a lot of billing services that are uncollectible, and they have to write a lot of billable revenue off. That would be the neighborhood improvement project. The Christian radio signal below that, it's a Christian radio. Their equipment is actually installed on a tower, and that is owned by SBA Structures LLC, and they're a 501c3 business. So our recommendation for that one as well is an E3 charitable exemption. The next page is Board of Assessors obsolescence. We had quite a few companies this year request obsolescence for COVID-19. We looked at the information that they provided to us. They may have given us value information, foot track information. We also looked to see if their stocks were going up or down. We looked at their revenue, and the first one is Georgia CVS Pharmacy. They had decreased foot traffic. They may have been open, but they had a lot of curbside or drive-through, but their foot traffic was less. The Hertz Corporation below that, 25% economic obsolescence, that's car rental on Tobacco Road. Jill Acquisitions, 25% economic obsolescence, that's at the mall. Airmark Uniform, we've given them or are asking for approval for a 15% economic obsolescence. That company's on 3302 Commerce Drive. Outback Steakhouse, 10% economic obsolescence. Again, maybe foot traffic within the restaurant, but they probably had a lot more curbside. But we took a look at that documentation as well. Bonefish Grill, 15% economic obsolescence. They're at 2911 Washington Road. Carrabba's, I'm sorry, Italian Grill at 2832 Washington Road, at 10% economic obsolescence. Regal Cinemas, we used a 50% idle exemption or an adjustment because their equipment wasn't even being used January 1. And that's all I have. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Are there any questions? If there are none, then we're going to move on to residential. Ms. Greer.
Good afternoon. What we have before you today is all the appeals that we've worked so far. As you can see, some are increased, some are decreased.
Oh.
And some are 30-day. Some are no value change or BOE. Some are withdrawal, and some are recommend. If I can answer any of your questions, I'll be more than happy to.
Do we have any questions for real estate?
I do have to jump back in there if you don't mind for personal property.
Yes, ma'am.
We had a new account, Advance Composite Incorporated. That was new, so we the current value would be $188,368. And then we had some Freeport denials. Those Freeports were denying for various reasons. They may not be an actual manufacturer or a distributor. And that's on page 10, Keldrick, thank you. So we would send them a letter and we'd like to get the board to approve these denials so we can send them a letter because they will have an appeal period that they can file an appeal, the 45 days. And then we have one timber sales. I'm sorry, I was looking at a different spreadsheet. And that's all we have.
Okay. Any questions, anyone? there are no questions, we're going to move on to commercial auditors. Mr. Funk?
Yes, ma'am. So I believe we are gonna, as far as commercial, I'll cover the same thing that Ms. Greer already said. Our commercials are mixed in with the residential appeals. It's real estate appeals is how we have it on your board work. But there's some commercials, some residential. I think the commercial division has approximately 35 appeals to date. Obviously, we have a couple weeks to go with that filing period. We do have one recommendation that we are sending to the board, Waverly Villa Apartments. This was a 2020 appeal, and we actually reached an agreement based on your approval today with the taxpayer prior to going to the BOE that was scheduled in late May. So we tabled it for the BOE, and we are recommending that we reduce that value from I think it was approximately 3,571,000 to 3,002,000. That's based on our review of the financials, the information that got submitted during the appeal process.
Okay.
I do need to go back and cover just a couple things on personal. Terry did a really good job. That's a lot of information we've presented to y'all today on personal property. Keldrick, I need to, or you can pull up that obsolescence request denials. So Terry showed you all the obsolescence, the accounts we granted obsolescence to. There were also additional requests. We have a whole list of those as well for the board. These were the ones we reviewed and denied. I do want to fully express to the board that basically we went in one of our collaboration rooms or conference rooms, and there were 5 of us reviewing these various accounts that mentioned some kind of obsolescence or COVID. We went through any information they supplied. We went through any information we could find online, stock prices, revenues, basically a whole host of information to see if we could validate the request or not. Any of the ones that we presented to you or Terry presented to you shortly ago, we found some reason for the adjustment, and we found some reason for the percentage that we allocated to that company. The ones included on this list are the ones that we were denying the obsolescence request. I can use the very top one. I think that's probably the easiest one for everybody to see. Fisher Paykel Healthcare. They lease humidifiers. Based on our research and review, humidifiers were one of the things used to treat patients and help patients struggling during the COVID cycle this last year at hospitals and healthcare facilities. So we didn't see reason to adjust the value downward on that account. In fact, we thought, based on our research, they probably had more business than prior years. So that is a good example of one we denied. Another good example is the Real D. That one, you're going to have a lot of different denial reasons in here based on what we found. The Real D is a real good example of one we denied because they're not taxable in Richmond County. I'm sure they sent that information, that letter out to many counties, anywhere they had equipment. But that one, they're not taxable here. There was no reason for us to adjust the value. They're not going to receive a tax bill anyways because they're under the $7,500 threshold. So they will not be taxable in Richmond County. The other thing I want to present to you, Keldrick, I re-uploaded it to the specialized folder, is the COVID-19 business personal property obsolescence request form. It's a PDF file this time. It's not a Word file. As he pulls this up, I'll start a short explanation of this. So based on what we just went through with COVID-19 and the impact it had on various businesses or real estate, we're seeing that we're seeing COVID-19 mentioned multiple times in the appeal process. We saw actually Brandon Jones. Let me give credit where credit's due. Brandon Jones, our auditor supervisor, found a letter in North Carolina that the state Department of Revenue in North Carolina had modified and made for obsolescence requests due to COVID-19. I thought it was a great questionnaire. So Brandon kind of reworked it a little bit to fit us. Since we're not getting any state forms from our Department of Revenue, I thought it would be helpful for us to have a form prepared and ready to send to anyone who during the appeal process may request COVID-19 economic relief based on obsolescence of some sort. So this form is 4 pages. The first page is their basic information. I think pages 1, the rest of page 1, page 2, and page 3 are questions that they'll fill out, such as what you're seeing, governor executive orders, how did that impact on dates open, closed. And then the very last page, and I need to apologize to the Specialized Assessments Committee because this is one of the things Mr. Middleton specifically asked about, if I remember correctly. This very last page is that supplement information that he was alluding to, that it on our top, I believe it said page 3. We corrected that to page 4 for this meeting. And this is the supplement information page. It just kind of gives them a little list, and it gives them a generic explanation of what obsolescence is and why we would apply obsolescence, but it also gives them a little list of things they could provide to us in that with this questionnaire that may help us to justify or make a better decision towards their obsolescence requests. So part of the approval process today, obviously, we want to approve the denial of the obsolescence requests that the staff reviewed and came up with a denial decision, as well as the form to make sure that moving forward as we go through the appeal process, we can utilize the form and obtain the best information possible to make the best decisions possible.
Mr. Funk.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Juanita Burney. I like the idea of the form to help stimulate people on what kinds of things they do need to submit to make this kind of request. In the list that we just finished looking at, though, those that were listed and it said they did not supply supporting documentation, were they contacted and asked about sending in some more, or we just decided they didn't give us enough information?
We contacted anyone we could. I will be the first person to tell you, Miss Burney, that during the review process of personal property returns, the team worked over 5,000 business returns in the matter of last 2 months. And I will not sit and promise you that everyone was contacted, but that didn't stop us from reviewing the business, because some of them request it and don't send anything and won't send anything. But that is not a specific reason why we're going to deny someone. Okay. We're going to review the best information we have. We're going to review the market to see if there's impact on that specific market and make the best decision possible.
Understood. I understand you were dealing with a lot of volume. I think the form looks good just for consistency. The spacing needs to be looked at between a couple of numbers. I think it was number 3 and 4 and number 7 and 8. All of the numbers had space between them except those, I believe. Can you go back?
I see that there. Yeah, it needs some space to provide an answer.
Yeah, just a little space adjustment to make the form consistent. Yeah, 2 and 3, that's what it is.
Absolutely.
It's 2, 3, and 7 and 8.
I absolutely see what you're talking about. We will clean that up in the Word document instead of this PDF document before we send it.
But I like the form. I think it's a very good form.
And to your first question, Ms. Burney, those denials will certainly, like all property owners, have the right of appeal once we send these notices out tomorrow. So I'm certain we may be hearing from some of them during the next 45 days.
Understood. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? If there are none, we're going to move on to specialized assessments, GIS project management, Mr. Roundtree.
I believe you're muted, Scott.
I am muted. Here I am. I'm noticing on the last page of real estate, there's actually an error of fact. Nancy, can you speak to that before I move to the specialized assessment?
Absolutely.
You're
What
on page
happened?
page 29, Keldrick. There you go.
Yeah. What happened there is they entered the house there was a new house being built and a mobile home out there. And they added the house under the mobile home key. So they had to reverse them. So the new construction now is on the real key and the mobile home's on the mobile key. And they had to delete the residence and re-enter as a residential
Oh, so
improvement.
that was a data entry error. Okay.
On our part, yes.
Okay.
It's at 48% complete.
Got it. All right. So on specialized, Keldrick, there's actually the Word document that Ms. Coleman sent for the first item for historic, so that we can see all three of those items. Sorry, so we sent the board work out, and the historic exemption information was formatted in a way that only one of the three items were showing up. So immediately following that email, you should have gotten this information with all three historic rehabilitation items. So we have a Part A approval, a Part B approval, and a Part A and B approval. So of course, Part A is the preliminary certification, and we received that on 1255 Broad Street. We actually received their Part A 2.5 years after they got it from the department that manages these, the State of Georgia's Historic Preservation Division. And so we have to freeze the value at our current value based on when we receive the document. So we are recommending a Part A approval and a frozen value or preliminary value of $945,000 approximately. The Part B approval below there is at 939 Millage Road, and we're recommending approval of that, and the frozen value at $712,000. And then lastly, we received a Part A and B from property owner after they had finished their rehabilitation for 420 2nd Street. They met all the requirements as well, and we are recommending approval and a frozen value of $76,122. Okay, and Keldrick, we can bop over now to the exempt properties on the regular board work. Okay, next page. Perfect. Oh. All right, so this is an exempt application that was received with a 2021 appeal. So church property on Peach Orchard Road, and the church's Newfound Territory Ministries. William Griffin worked this review and visited the property, and it was determined that the church is under construction. However, information was provided to the team that they were actually utilizing the property for prayer and worship, both during the pre-construction and construction process. It's a nearly complete building now, but they are recommending approval of the exemption based on the use that they determined made this an eligible exemption for religious worship. And go down to the QTP next. There we go. So the qualified timberland property, this is the digest classification that is reviewed and valued by the Department of Revenue. This is only the second year of the program. And we, in fact, had 4 approvals from the Department of Revenue. And so what they submit to us and received a couple weeks ago is essentially the same thing as our notices of assessment. We have to receive and either approve or appeal the valuations provided to us by the Department of Revenue. And our recommendation on these 4 properties is that we accept the Department of Revenue's value for these qualified timberland properties, and then we will note them as such on our digest, and they will be billed as qualified timberland properties. Let's see, and I think, is that it? That's it. So beyond that is, okay, we've already reviewed this information, haven't we? So that's all the recommendations from specialized assessments that we have today, which was a good bit.
Does anybody have any questions? If there are none, I need a motion to approve all staff recommendations.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Moving on to Chief Appraiser's report.
Okay, I'm getting my notes ready to share with y'all. Okay, can we see the office status report? Yes? Okay.
Yes, that's what I have on my screen, Scott.
Okay, perfect. All right. So first thing I want to bring up is the in-person meetings. At the last board meeting, we determined that we wanted to meet in person, and we did start the conversations with the administrator and other offices to see if we could make that happen. But in the commission, they have been discussing this almost every meeting. And in fact, tomorrow there is an agenda item to authorize that all boards, authorities, and committees be allowed to meet in person effective immediately. So we will be keeping tabs on that item tomorrow during the commission meeting. And as soon as we know what the decision is, if it's a yay, then we will immediately begin planning for next month's board meeting and any other meetings to be held at the municipal building. So I know everyone will be excited to get back in person and off of the Zoom meetings if we can possibly do that. So look for more news on that in the coming couple of days.
Okay.
So Chairman Datnack wanted me to provide the board with an updated organizational chart with the shifts in positions and leadership. And I believe we emailed that out to everybody, but here's a copy of that with all of our currently filled positions and our one vacant, my deputy chief appraiser position, which I vacated. We're actually going through the HR process now to get that posted and available to the working market. And we'll see what kind of responses we get from that. Hopefully we will begin receiving applications and can begin interviews in the coming weeks for that position. So the biggest deal we've got going on right now, as far as what we're spending our time on, continues to be the IAS World CAMA conversion. We are continuing our weekly meetings for both the overview of the project and personal property and assessment administration and commercial and residential. And so I think we probably have throughout the office 4 or 5 meetings throughout the week. The team over at Tyler did let us know end of last week that they were finally cleared for in-person training and can come down. So we've been working with these guys for months and have never met any of them. And so we will be looking forward to their arrival at the end of July after the Jekyll conference, where we can actually get real hands-on with them and the office to review this CAMA system that we have been working on so diligently the last couple of months. And you can see the between June and July timeframe, this kind of gives you an idea of where we are and what we've been doing. We're continuing to build the data, work through the reports to make sure that we're getting all the information reported that we need for our daily work. And we are easing closer and closer to their anticipated production cutover, which is approximately September. All right, the other project that we are happy to see is mostly complete was our pictometry flight. Our online access is complete, so staff now has the available imagery from 2021 on every property in Richmond County. And we are awaiting the setup and delivery of the project, where we will compare our previous flight with the current flight to determine where change has not been captured in our database. So I would hope that that would be complete early fall, maybe August or September, so that we can be working on those revisions while we also roll over our new CAMA system. All right, and I guess jump into some operation stuff. We recently were requested by the IT department to do a full review of all of our cellular devices, of which we had many. That list that they gave us indicated we had 38 cellular devices, and that includes iPads and jetpacks, which are a mobile hotspot that we acquired as part of the purchase last year of our laptops that we got in response to the COVID pandemic. In reviewing that, we determined that the jetpacks themselves were not being utilized. All of those laptops do have Wi-Fi, and majority of the folks that were using the laptops were not even turning these mobile hotspots on. So we did request to deactivate 8 of those and try to save a little money in that budget item, and put away some things that we don't necessarily need to have on hand all times. Here's a quick look at our fuel usage for the year. We're at about 43% of our allocated budget amount that we have utilized. We really did have a heavy use of vehicles in February and March as we finalized all of our annual reviews. So we're certainly looking good still on that budget item, and we'll have plenty of gas money for the whole year. All right, so we are working with the Department of Audits and Accounts on sharing information with them and reviewing all of the appraisals that they submitted to us that will be part of their 2020 study. So we've already reviewed the sales that they submitted to us that were going to be included in the study. I believe it was around 1,200 properties. In addition to actual sales, they do independent appraisals and compare them to our values. And it looks like we will be submitting it back to them tomorrow without any concerns or questions about that process. They started the appraisal review nearly a year ago, and we took out most of the things that we saw could have potential issues. In fact, one of the appraisals that we asked them to remove, and they agreed, was there was a piece of property owned by Mr. Simpkins on the list, and they saw that as a potential conflict. So we were able to remove that from the appraisals list. let's see. Of course, we've got Jekyll coming up, and this will really be the first big conference we've had since last year. So it'll be a great opportunity to reconvene with our industry colleagues and to begin, circling back into the meeting in person environments. A couple of us are excited about a new course they're offering this year, which we will hopefully get a good bit of information from, the compliance standards for assessors and appraisers, which is a brand new course. So we are all looking forward to that in the end of July. Appraisal staff has continued going to class and has stuff upcoming. And I think since our last board meeting, we've had 3 or maybe even 4 classes completed. And as far as I have heard, all successfully by all the appraisers for course 1, the income approach course 2, and of course the personal property course, which was held here in Augusta last week. I'll say we get continued comments and compliments from anyone who's attending the courses that are here, and we certainly hope to have more in the coming future. We like hosting our friends. I wanted to make a note too of something that could have an impact on some of our information that we track and maintain. The county has been working on a county blight ordinance for several months. There is a large committee that's been working on it, and interdepartmental committee that has been reviewing and researching all the things that might go into creating a county blight ordinance. And we were happy to participate in that process with them so that they could recommend to the administrator and the commission the possible path forward for the county on its blight ordinance. One thing that is certainly a direct impact on our office is that if a ordinance is passed and a single property is deemed as blighted, it does allow the county to apply an increased millage rate individually on that property. If the property goes through a remediation process successfully, they can in fact decrease their millage rates on that single property. And I wanted to note too that that variation in the rate of taxation is permissible per the Georgia Constitution and the uniformity of taxation that's otherwise required. So I did have a question from somebody about that a couple of weeks ago. Was it okay to do this? Could we uniformly approach these properties while they had a much higher tax rate? And the Constitution does allow that to happen. As part of the process, we've been trying to come up with ways that we can visualize and review areas that could be actually or potentially blighted. So our project center team has worked on a couple of items to try to figure out, what is blight per our definitions and where is it. If you see that map on the right, they've created a density map or a hotspot map that takes into all kinds of different physical factors on property to determine where the highest potential blight issues are in the county. And it's hard to see or exactly where those are, but it's generally in the Turpin Hill, Laney Walker, East Boundary, and Harrisburg areas where the most issues were identified where blight could potentially be. So we hope to continue this study and to help the other departments determine where issues might be, and hopefully we can help them in that process. All right, so we're going to move on to the 2021 digest. So today we did approve the personal property digest, and the real estate digest was approved last month. So the real work starts now of getting all of that information compiled and reviewed. And within the next 2 weeks, we will be submitting the 2021 digest file to the tax commissioner's office to begin the process of our digest review. And the personal property, which was reviewed today, actually, there's a quick look at the overall valuation change that we saw based on my calculations for the personal property digest. And this includes the modifieds, the news, the deletes, and because this is how we report it, it also includes the utility values for public utility properties. And so if you can see at the bottom that that amount did decrease this year, nearly $50 million, 100% value, and about a 19 million, 40% value. So it was the overall change that we saw so far on the personal property digest. And the real property digest, these numbers are reflective of the end of the day, more or less on Friday, which includes any changes we've made in the property values since we sent out notices. So our personal property, our real estate is at approximately 11 billion 900 million. It's a big number, close to 12 billion. And I'll put them both together here so you can see more or less how this would look going into the digest review packages. The overall value of our real and our personal and our utility combined was a net increase. At the 40% totals, there's about $170 million increase from last year. And I've included, of course, the information that the tax commissioner continues to monitor throughout the year for motor vehicles, mobile homes, timber, heavy equipment. So overall, our gross digest is increased. Our exemptions have increased too this year, but still overall, we have a net positive change. The majority of that change was from inflationary growth. So those market-based reasons for the value change, the residential real estate current market, the income properties current market. And so the majority, again, of that growth was because of inflationary reasons. And if you look here, I guess our subtotal for the digest change was about 170 million and 40%. And the inflationary growth of that is about 142 million. So that'll prompt the finance department and the county to review the digest as a rollback opportunity. And so we will begin compiling all this information and submitting it to the tax commissioner and subsequently the taxing authorities in the coming weeks. Here's a quick reminder again, we are in appeals and you can appeal your property online for 2 more weeks. The 28th is our deadline for real estate appeals. And I'll quickly show you what's been going on based on those notices. So this is a quick chart of our return mail tracking. We have, as of Friday, had received close to 2,500 pieces of return mail. So that compared to how many notices we mailed, that's lower than last year. So continuing to see a trend downward in the amount of return mail that we are getting into our office. It's still a good bit, but it does look like they're trending in the right direction. 180 appeals as of Friday. I'm sure that number has gone up during the day today, but historically at this point, and I didn't pull the number, I apologize, but we are typically a much higher number of appeals at this point. So the appeal count is manageable and the appeals teams are working diligently through the process to get them completed. If you look to the right, you can see our value in dispute of the total digest. It's less than 0.04%. So it's a very small amount. We are about 67, probably a little higher than that today, percent complete. Residential, close to 75% complete already with their appeals. A lot of those changes that we sent to y'all today were for 30-day notices, and then a large number of resolved and withdrawn. I'll note that the difference between resolved and withdrawn is a resolved appeal, we adjusted the value. A withdrawn appeal, we did not change the value and they agreed to withdraw it after they reviewed the information we shared with them. Commercial, it says as of Friday, again, close to 50% complete on their appeals. And if we look at the values that we've changed to this point, we're reduced by about $2 million based on the assessment notices that were mailed. However, we always like to look at what were those values last year. And of the property under appeal, we are still $18 million over what those values were in the prior year. All right, and that is the end of the status report. And if anyone has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to field those now.
Are there any questions?
Very good. Well, thank you for allowing me to share with you everything that's going on right now, at least the highlights.
Okay. So moving on to other matters, we have two other matters that was added to the agenda. One being we wanted to discuss the GAAO Summer Conference Lifetime Membership Honor for Mr. Aldino Ross and a proposed alternative work schedule for the tax assessor's office staff. So right now we're going to take the GAA Summer Conference. Mr. Ross has requested that we fund his hotel and travel to the GAAO Summer Conference, where he would be funded as a lifetime member, honored as a lifetime member of that conference. And I wanted to bring that to the board for discussion to see where you all's thoughts are and whether or not we can approve allowing Mr. Ross to go to the GAAO conference on our behalf. Those funds would be pulled from the tax assessors board funding, if I'm correct, Mr. Scott.
That is correct. And Ms. Chairman Datnack had us review and discuss this with other departments to determine if this was okay to do. It was advised to us that since he is still technically an employee on the way they've structured his departure, he is on salary continuation, is still being paid as an employee until July 24th of this year. And their finance department did recommend that we provide him a stipend out of the board's education and travel budget rather than paying directly the expenses to the hotel. And so that was their recommendation, that we determine what his expected costs were and submit a check directly to him for the cost of that per your approval, if it's something you would like to consider.
Okay, and with that being said, it was my understanding with conversations with some of the commissioners that we cannot utilize funds for Mr. Ross due to the fact that he is, even though he is still under contract until July 24th, he is not, if we send him, we're not benefiting on our part for utilizing those funds for our office. So at this point with my conversation, I would like to just get some other feedback from some of the other board members to see what your thinking is, because I know that information came out in the packet, and then after that, we can take a roll call vote.
Madam President, Juanita Burney, I would like to share my thoughts regarding this request.
Yes, ma'am.
And they come to me as follows. Number one, Mr. Ross is not a member of the BOA board. And these funds would have to come from the BOA board. These funds are for current BOA members, and he is not a member. Number two, it is my understanding that he's not really a salaried person, that based on the fact that he received the extra compensation based on when he retired, that he is obligated for a certain period of time to be available and accessible for questions, the same as was our prior administrator and the prior attorney. It's the same situation because of the severance packages that they received, and it's an obligation of the severance package. Number two, Jekyll Island is a continuing education conference. As a retired person, Mr. Ross doesn't have a need for continuing education. And it's like my going back to my retired person and saying, will you support me in going to something that I don't have a right to request that? And as a retiree, he doesn't have a right to request that the city sponsors his requests for, I think it's lodging and meals, I believe it is. And another factor is he is not making a presentation or anything on behalf of the board. And so why would we pay when he is not fulfilling an obligation on behalf of the board? If we're going to give up Board of Assessor funds, then my preference would be for those funds to would go to, do you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Can you hear?
You're breaking up.
Hello? Hello?
Can't hear
Okay, I'm
anything.
here.
Can't hear anything.
Ms. Bernie? Ms. Bernie?
Not here, Ms. Burns.
I've gone in and out. This is Maura Dial. I've gone in and out a couple of times with this connection. Ms. Bernie might be having the same problem.
Do you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I do.
But
Yeah.
I received a message that I was muted. I didn't mute myself.
It seems to be cutting in and out on us.
Cutting out. When it cuts out, it states says mute. But we can hear you now.
Okay. I think the last comment I was making was that if we give up BOA funds from our educational budget, then in my opinion, those funds would need to go and should go to current employed staff if they are running short of the funds that they need to get their certifications and their education. And so those are the comments that I have. So obviously I'm opposed.
Okay, and it is my understanding that we cannot take taxpayers' dollars to pay for someone that is no longer an employee. So anybody else have anything to say pertaining to that? Yes,
Madam
sir.
Chair, my
Yes, sir.
thing is, based on your last statement, is that the case, we don't even need to vote on it.
Okay.
I mean, to me, it's a done deal. It's mute. If we cannot take taxpayers' dollars to do something like that, then why even vote? Why exercise this?
Right. Well, my thing is I wanted to bring it to the full board so you all were aware what the request was.
Madam
Was
Chairman,
appropriate.
this is Commissioner Scott, and you're exactly right. We cannot use city funds to pay for non-city employees or board members' activities. And I don't, from what I'm hearing, I don't see a justification for that request to be granted. Just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, no more comments. So we're going to deny
Madam
that.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I don't want to have another comment on that, but I wanted to ask a question. I wanted to find out if are staff members still in a rotation for the GAAO conference, or were changes made to accommodate staff members that needed any courses that were being offered?
That question you can impose to Mr. Roundtree.
So-
I'm not sure.
We do, I thought I had my list right here. We do have staff rotating to the conference this year because of our overall budget reduction for the travel and education budget. We did limit that to 4 employees to the conference this year. And we will continue to be sending employees to other courses throughout the year as they are certainly in desperate need of education. Not just for their required hours, but we got to keep them sharp and engaged and learning. So we will be doing again four employees, including the typical management staff that attends, and continuing to send folks to class throughout the year.
So as the minutes stated, there will be 9 staffers going.
Is that our count? I can't, let me pull
The
that up.
minutes said that there would be 9 staffers and 2 board members.
Okay,
Okay.
Mary,
And they're still in rotation. All right, thank you.
that's correct.
And the other request was for the staff to have an alternative work schedule. Mrs. Scott, can you break that down for the board for us, please?
I sure will. So we had a few requests to consider and look at the compressed work schedule option that the county has as an authorized daily schedule. We currently already have 6 employees that are on this schedule. They have been on the schedule since 2008. When this was offered to employees of the county as a whole, as a way to have a more flexible schedule. Around 2012, Mr. Ross, I guess, halted requests for this schedule, and we have not had any employees go on to the 4-day work week since that time. So for those who were not fully aware, the 4-day work week compresses your required 37.5 hours into 4 work days. And in our proposal, we're requesting that it be either Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. This would cover employees of all the appraisal and clerk divisions in the office who are not on probation, allowing them to request that they can be put on one of these schedules. And we're looking at implementation, if we can, based on your approval. I guess the initial setup for this in 2008 was discussed by the board, but not affirmed or approved. And when I discussed this item with Administrator Donald, he thought it would be best that we present it to the board and seek your approval or blessing on attempting to implement this schedule. We've taken what the PPPM section on alternative work schedules allows and selected the portions of it that we feel can be best managed in this office so that we can continue to meet the missions of the Board of Assessors and actually be able to address all the needs of the public on any given day. So we have established minimum staffing requirements for the various divisions to ensure that they are covered and physically here to make sure all those needs are met. We are looking at the possibility of 3 authorized daily schedules, essentially keeping the office still open to the public from 8 to 5:30, but staff could be either starting at 7 or 7:30 or 8 o'clock based on their requests. We did take a good look at the individual tasks and duties of all the employees to make sure that the work and the way that their positions and job descriptions are structured would allow them to have things that they would be doing during those hours, either before the office opens to the public or after the office opens to the public. And in every case, our clerks to our appraisers have ample work to be done without the public here and available. And the appraisal staff specifically thought that it would be a helpful setup for them to be able to go out in the field during their normal field hours and allow them ample follow-up time and review time once they're back at their desks. to kind of collect the day and review the things that they have just been field checking. I want to certainly emphasize in this that the PPPM and this schedule will allow for temporary suspension of the 4-day work week back to a standard 5-day work week during holidays, meetings, or education weeks where they're out of town. But importantly, during essential work-related activities at the discretion of the division supervisor or management, so that if we are within a period of, let's say, appeals or the real property discovery process, then we can temporarily suspend that schedule to ensure that we're meeting the needs of the particular task at hand. I'd say that one thing that did not necessarily occur during the previous, setup for this was a certain emphasis that this is an individual privilege. And if an individual is not meeting up to their end of the bargain and not doing the work they should be outside those standard work hours, that this would be immediately revoked or reviewed for revocation to make sure that they are back on a set schedule that meets the needs of the office and is not being taken advantage of. So we are presenting this to you today as a proposal for a approval to allow us to begin the process with HR and payroll to get some of our team on this flexible schedule. And that's all I've got to share with you. I'm sure there could be some questions I'd be happy to address best I can.
So you mentioned 7 o'clock. So are you talking about 7 a.m. at the time that they would be reporting to work?
Yes, ma'am.
And will there be security on site at the time that they report?
So we did confirm that the municipal building is staffed and opened between, I believe it was around 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock at night during the week. So there will be marshals present and they will have access. We'd have to perhaps update the credentials on their swipe in, swipe out cards so they can get into the office. But they did confirm that the building was available and open for employees. In fact, there are employees that come to work already around 7 o'clock in the morning in various departments.
And this has no change in reference to their funds or salary that they make, correct?
No, it does not change their working hours as far as the number of hours that they're required to work. So we are all staff are required to work 75 hours in a 2-week pay period. And this does the exact same thing. They will still have 75 required hours. It will just be compressed into 4 days per week.
Okay.
Mr. Roundtree.
Yes, sir.
This does not include the supervisor, am I correct?
Some of the supervisors are actually currently on this schedule. And so they would still be allowed to request it. And if there's a particular supervisor who's not in on a certain day, the way we've always managed it to this point is that there is somebody else who can handle issues in their stead. And the current supervisors and management team that are on this schedule have been excellent in maintaining their obligations and responsibilities to their team. In fact, Brian is on a 4-day work week and he's here today. So there's certain times where we know we have to commit and be there. And we will ensure that those are thoroughly discussed with any employee that requests this work schedule. And when in doubt, I'm not doing this at all. It does not appeal to me. So if in the absence of anybody else, I will be here to help and support the staff.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so since Brian is here today and normally this is one of his days off, how do we account for the overage?
So him specifically as an exempt employee, he can go over all day long.
Okay.
And we don't have to compensate him for that.
Right,
He's just
right.
doing it out of the good of his heart and because he has to. Right. But for other employees, if there were particular reasons and they're non-exempt that they had to be in the office on a given day, then we would more than likely work with them on doing a 5-day work week during the week that they needed to be here. So say, for example, I'm on a 4-day work week, but I know that I've got appeal hearings at the clerk of courts that would put me in the office on my typical day off. So we'll know those kind of things well in advance to be able to kind of adjust the schedule for that particular engagement. And that's what we wanted to make sure that those essential work-related activities, especially at a personal level, are met.
Okay. Any other questions, anyone? Okay, do we need to take a roll call vote, Ms. Coleman, pertaining to the alternative work schedule, or?
A regular vote is fine. A roll call is not necessary, but if you would like one, that's fine too.
Okay, so pertaining to the GAAO summer conference, we're denying that. And pertaining to the staff alternative work schedule, we can present that to the HR director to review.
And she received an opportunity to review it to make
Okay.
sure that all the requirements of the PPPM are met, but the end decision is with the administrator, Mr. Donald.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we can go ahead and forward that information, and once we get a reply back, we can just inform the board.
And did the board choose to make a recommendation or a vote on this?
I have one question before we vote. Mr. Scott, I'm assuming. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm assuming this is being expanded and opened up to other employees that can request it. And so sometimes you never know how things are going to work out. So I'm assuming within these policies you will have the flexibility to make changes if there needs to be changes.
Correct. So we've made sure that one of the primary issues was making sure we had minimum staffing limits, so that if we got a request from everybody all for on a Friday, we're not gonna allow that to happen. We'll have to work it out with our immediate work groups and make sure that everyone that makes the request is at least accommodated. The PPPM makes sure that the department director understands that you should only deny these if you're allowing the program. You should only deny these if you felt like the request would hinder the mission of the organization. And so we will at all times make sure that that's our primary goal. We make sure that we're here and serving the public like we should every day of the week.
Thank you.
And adjustments are flexible.
Okay. Any other statements, questions? If there are none, we can go ahead and take a roll call vote. Ms. Coleman, can you go forward with it for me, please?
Yes. On a motion to accept the staff's alternative work schedule to be presented to the administrator, if you could please answer yes or no. Mr. O'Neill? Mr. O'Neill?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Burney?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Simpkins?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Middleton?
Yes.
Ms. Dial?
Yes.
And Ms. DeAntonac?
Yes.
Motion is unanimous for yes to approve.
All right, thank you. And we'll stick close and make sure everything's working as expected and continue to update the board on how it works. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else to discuss, anyone?
Mr. Nag, I'd like to ask Mr. Scott a couple of questions, please.
Please.
Okay.
Mr. Roundtree, I'd like to see a breakdown of the distribution of the DOR certification funds that were distributed in December.
Okay.
And My other question is, are the new assessors being kept abreast of upcoming courses to help them to meet their course deadline requirements to maintain their certification?
I do know that Ms. Coleman has been staying on top of who is needing what, specifically any new board members like Mrs. Dial, to make sure that we can figure out when to get them to class. But we can easily do a review of every board member and see where we sit. So y'all are meeting your requirements by going to caveat every year. And Mr. Mills has been working with Ms. Coleman as well. Have you finished all your courses yet, Mr. Mills? Your preliminary courses?
I think I need just one.
He needs just one course, and it is pending for virtual course for that he gets
Right,
the appropriate number of hours.
And those particular courses that have been unavailable are why the Department of Revenue suspended those rules until the courses were actually available for everybody that needs them. And so we will certainly stay on top of that and make sure that we're always educated. And to clarify, which funds specifically were you asking for a breakdown on?
Well, I know toward the end of the year, we were back and forth with I guess it was HR about that.
With the Department of Revenue certification funds.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Yes, we can hunt that allocation down and share that with you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Nieta and Mr. Scott, I know we did caveat back to back, it seems. And of course, with the most recent one, we were not notified whether or not we've got our clearance or our hours that we needed. For the prior one that we just took, which was for last year, and the one we just took for recently. Do you have any updates pertaining to that information?
So whether or not you were cleared for receiving credit?
Clear for 2020?
Right. Yes.
2020, well, 21, I guess, would be the relevant date now,
because
right?
we did the ones with UGA, which we all had to do those online. So we were never informed whether or not we got our hours for that caveat.
Okay.
And then we turned around and we just did this caveat here on the internet. So I'm just trying to inquire as to whether or not we.
So what we can do is access the Department of Revenue's portal and review every board member to make sure that everything is allocated as it should be. And we can report back very soon on the status of everybody's education.
Thank you so much. Any further questions, statements? Okay, moving on, Ms. Dial. Is she still there?
I think she's on mute.
Okay.
I think she's had some connectivity issues here. There she is.
Okay. Is she still on mute?
She's trying to connect.
Okay. I just can't see everybody right now. I couldn't log in.
I can't either. She just texted me that she's having trouble.
Okay. So since Ms. Dowell is having issues with connecting, can someone else do Mr. Williams, would you like to do your old duty?
Madam Chair, I recommend that this meeting is adjourned.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody else? Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you.